Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about this new poll from YouGov. They polled all of the swing states: Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And these results show an interesting look at the 2024 race and, a general idea of the race that we have had in mind for quite a while. And it is becoming more apparent, that being that Kamala Harris will be strong in the Rust Belt. You could even say that she has the Rust Belt, the Blue Wall Rust Belt states on lockdown, but she is losing in the Sun Belt states. So in this YouGov poll, they're B+ rated pollster in case you were wondering, so take that for what it's worth. But in Arizona, Donald Trump is ahead by 2%. He's also ahead by 2% in the state of Georgia. In North Carolina, which he won in 2020, he's ahead by 1%. But then we have Pennsylvania, Harris ahead by 1%. Nevada, Harris ahead by 3%. Wisconsin, Harris ahead by 3%. And then Michigan, Harris ahead by a very healthy 5%. So you've got 3 of the 7 battleground states going to Trump, 4 of them going to Harris. And what you notice is that all of the 3 Trump states they are all Sun Belt states, not Rust Belt states, but Sun Belt states. Arizona, Georgia, in North Carolina. It could signify, that Kamala Harris needs to up her game in the Sun Belt, which is the area that it seems like she is targeting the most so far in this race. I mean, yes, she's been to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin a number of times, but she is always down in Georgia. She is always down in North Carolina. So when you put this on the electoral map, first of all, before we go into, any further, what would this result if this did come, if this exact poll, if these were the exact results, what would this look like on the electoral map? Well, Arizona is lean, Georgia is lean, North Carolina is lean, and then we see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win every other state by a lean or likely margin. Michigan is likely. So Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win, but it is extremely narrow. It's 276 electoral votes for them. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump win 262. I think that this race is narrowing up a lot. So, again, the good thing when it comes to doing well in the Rust Belt, in the Blue Wall, that's Wisconsin, that's Michigan, that's Pennsylvania, and doing poorly across the Sun Belt. The good thing about that for the Kamala campaign, for the Harris campaign, is the fact that she could win with just the Rust Belt states. Even if Nevada goes to Donald Trump by a narrow margin, but she is able to hang on to these 3 Blue Wall Rust Belt states. If she has them on lock, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, she is at 270 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. It's 270 to 268. An excruciatingly close, narrow margin, but still a victory. She doesn't even need Nevada in that instance. Trump can take Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. Harris still wins the election. Every electoral vote there matters a lot. So, that's the positive thing about that strategy. But do you want to run a campaign where you're targeting 3 swing states and that's it, hoping for an electoral vote margin of 2 electoral votes? No, you don't. And obviously, no presidential campaign would aim for that unless you're down 20 points in the polls. Not 20, but Joe Biden was, he was down like 5. So this, he was targeting the Blue Wall, the Rust Belt states. That was his easiest path to victory. So obviously you don't want to do that if you're up, 4 points in the national polls, or 3 or 4 like Kamala Harris is. So obviously, Donald Trump could still win Wisconsin. These are not on lockdown for Harris. She doesn't have a 100% chance of winning these states. She's favored, but she's not guaranteed to win in these states. So if Wisconsin goes to Donald Trump, then, Harris needs a backup plan. You can't just target these 3 states. So you could look at Arizona. In that case, you'd win Nevada as well. Or you could look at Georgia or North Carolina, one of the 2 southern states. So you could even have Nevada and Arizona go red. But as long as you win just one, Georgia or North Carolina, you at 276. And you don't need Wisconsin in that instance. So, bad strategy, obviously, to go just the Rust Belt. But, at least that does give her victory if she does carry those 3 states. But you've seen Wisconsin, the most likely state of the 3, in my opinion, to go red despite the polling. We see Pennsylvania, Harris +1, Wisconsin, Harris +3. But, Harris wants to see She wants to see her numbers get up from even 3 in Wisconsin. 3% is healthy, but I will just remind you, this is so important to keep in mind. Wisconsin, currently, let's see, on average here, Harris is ahead by 3.4%, but in 2020, Biden was ahead in the state on election day in polls by 8.4%. He only ended up winning the state by 0.6. So, yeah, 0.6 versus 8.4. He was overestimated by some 7.8%. Nobody expected a margin this close in Wisconsin. Most people were predicting a likely Democratic win for Joe Biden there. So, polls like +3 in Wisconsin, or even, +3, especially +1 in Pennsylvania, and being down in these states, especially the Rust Belt states, that should be extremely concerning for the Harris campaign, because polling, it's a little different in the Sun Belt, but polling always overestimates Democratic presidential candidates in the Rust Belt. Now, again, they don't in the Sun Belt, and really, if I'm being honest, this video is about how this poll shows Kamala Harris struggling in the Sun Belt, doing very well in the Rust Belt. I don't think this is the case. I ultimately, come election day, I could see a possibility where Harris wins Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and possibly North Carolina as well, and loses in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Now, I know this goes against everything by all metrics. In the 2020 election, the Rust Belt was bluer than the Sun Belt. In the polling averages, the Rust Belt is way bluer than the Sun Belt. But you have to understand that, these polling numbers, it is confusing, right? I definitely think she has Michigan on lock, by the way, and she wins the election there. But, gotta understand, the polling is off in, certain regions of the country. Again, for example, Wisconsin. Biden was overestimated by 7.8%. You're probably not going to see an instance where Harris outperforms this +3 poll. It's possible, but I don't see it. I don't think it will be as dramatic as it was in 2020. I don't think that she will be overestimated by 8.4%, but I definitely doubt that Harris will be able to win by 3. I don't see it. And I definitely don't see her outperforming that. And you saw similar situations in 2020 in Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's just way off in polling. But the Sun Belt was more accurate. For example, we can look at the state of Georgia. Now again, polls in almost every state overestimated Biden, but we see in Georgia, Biden only led by 1.7% or 1.2% on election day, and he won by 0.2. So he was only overestimated by a point, which is very, very little, especially compared to the 8 points that he was overestimated in Wisconsin. Or in Arizona, for example, he was ahead by 2.6 on election day. He won by 0.3. So yes, 2.3 is bad, but it's definitely better than a lot of these other states. So, the Sun Belt is another thing when it comes to the polling, but I could honestly see, and this would be a major change from what we've seen in the past, but I could honestly see a situation where Harris is underestimated in polling, because we've got these new voter registration numbers. Now, these are actual numbers, set in stone from the Secretaries of State's offices. And this is voter registration. We see that young women, their voter registration is up 83% in, this time period right now, compared to this time period in 2020. 83% young women. 85% among African American increase. Black women up 98%. Young Latinas up 150%. Young black women up 176%. That is just astronomical. And these newer voters are always underrepresented in polling. That's why Trump was able to outperform the polls so well in 2016, because you had a lot of young white men who had never voted before, registered to vote and turn out on election day, especially across the Rust Belt states. That's what gave him victory, and polls, failed to capture that demographic of new first-time voters, and we see that there are a lot of new first-time voters, and of course, all these demographics are going to break heavily towards Harris. This is, this spike is, of course, caused by the Harris campaign. So, honestly, I think that Harris will end up winning Arizona, Georgia, probably not North Carolina. But hey, that's just what I think. So, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe down below. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers ASAP. Again, thank you for watching. I will see you all next time.